Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling, well, a really fundamental question, aren't we? What actually makes an idea stick? Or, a person influential? What leads to a life that feels genuinely successful, something that lasts?
Right, because we often look at big achievements and just think, oh, that person must be naturally charismatic, or maybe they just got lucky.
Exactly. Pure luck or some kind of magic touch.
But when you actually dig into it, when you look at decades, even centuries of thinking, from, say, motivational speakers to ancient philosophers, modern scientists, you start to see a pattern. It's not random. Success, real influence, it seems to have a structure.
Mm-hmm. An internal architecture.
That's a great way to put it. And that's our mission today, really. We've pulled together some fascinating sources, thinkers who actually agree on how these deep internal principles translate into, well, memorable results out there in the world.
So we're kind of aiming to move beyond just catchy anecdotes, right? We want to get into the underlying mechanisms, the frameworks that these experts across different fields seem to land on.
Precisely. We're looking for the blueprints. And this should give you, the listener, a practical toolkit. Ways to maybe assess your own approach, understand influence better, and build communication that actually resonates because it comes from a place of integrity.
Okay, so where do we start? With the blueprints, the architecture.
Yeah.
You start with the foundation, right?
Always. You have to
Yeah.
start with the foundation. And in this context, that means looking at the internal stuff first, the paradigms, the core beliefs that shape everything else, how you think, how you respond.
Right, the power of thought itself. This seems to be a thread that runs through almost all these sources, doesn't it?
It really does. It's almost startlingly consistent. You go way back to someone like Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, a Stoic. He basically said, a man's life is what his thoughts make of it.
Simple, but profound, like a law of nature.
It's treated that way in these texts, yeah. Not just a nice idea, but a fundamental principle. And then you see it echoed centuries later. Thinkers like Emerson.
A man is what he thinks about all day long. That one.
That's the one. And Earl Nightingale in the 20th century, he built on this. He called the mind the last great unexplored continent, whatever you plant there, intentionally. That's what grows.
Whether it's weeds or, something productive, fear or a clear goal.
Exactly. That's the core. But there's a crucial nuance here, isn't there? It's not just think positive and everything works out. William James, the philosopher, he stressed the need for exclusive desire.
Exclusive? What does that mean in practice?
It means if you want something, say, wealth or success, you have to want that specific thing and not at the same time want 100 other things that conflict with it.
Like wanting success, but also wanting zero risk or complete comfort, or for it to happen overnight without any effort.
Precisely. You can't wish for incompatible things simultaneously. It demands focus, a settled purpose, where your mental and emotional energy lines up behind that one main goal.
Okay, that sounds difficult. Maintaining that kind of singular focus?
It is incredibly difficult, and that leads to the next point, which is kind of sobering. If this law is so simple, focus your thoughts, get results, why do figures like Nightingale suggest only, 5% of people achieve real success?
Yeah, why only 5%?
Nightingale's take was pretty blunt. He basically said it's just easier to think negatively.
Easier.
Yeah. Our brains are kind of wired for survival, always scanning for threats, for what could go wrong. It takes effort, conscious effort, to override that default negativity, that mental inertia towards worry and doubt.
So success isn't the default state. It begins the moment you actively decide on a clear goal and push past that negative drift.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
The moment you decide, you essentially join that smaller group who actually know where they're going.
And that clarity, that focused will, that's the bridge to becoming proactive, isn't it? Moving from just reacting to actually directing your life. This sounds like Stephen Covey territory.
Absolutely. This is where Covey's framework comes in beautifully. He talks about shifting from being reactive, like a leaf blown by the wind, to being proactive, like the driver of the car.
And he defines a habit very specifically, doesn't he? It's not just doing something repeatedly.
Right. For Covey, a true habit lies at the intersection of three things. You need knowledge, knowing what to do, and crucially, why it's important.
Okay, the what and why.
Then you need the skill, knowing how to actually do it, the practical steps.
Makes sense.
And finally, you need the desire, the motivation, the want to do it. Without all three, it's not a sustainable habit. You might know what to do and how, but if you don't want to, it won't stick.
Knowledge, skill, and desire. Got it. And the foundational habit for Covey is proactivity.
Yes. And proactivity for him is more than just taking initiative. It's about responsibility.
Responsibility, ability to choose your response.
Exactly. It's that space between stimulus and response. Something happens to you, but you have the power, the responsibility, to choose how you react based on your values, not just your feelings in the moment.
So you subordinate feelings to values.
That's the key. Your behavior becomes a function of your decisions, your chosen values, not just your external conditions or your immediate emotional reaction.
That echoes some powerful historical voices, too,
Yeah.
like Eleanor Roosevelt saying, "No one can hurt you without your consent."
Mm-hmm. Or Gandhi's point about self-respect. They cannot take away our self-respect if we do not give it to them. The external event is just data. Our interpretation, our consent, that's where the power lies.
There's that anecdote about the nurse, right? Dealing with a difficult patient.
Yeah, that's a great illustration from Covey's work. This nurse felt completely drained and resentful because of this constantly complaining patient. She felt like a victim of his negativity. But then she attended a seminar, learned about proactivity, and had this realization. She was choosing to be miserable by letting his behavior dictate her feelings and sense of worth.
Wow, okay.
So she shifted her mindset. She decided to respond based on her professional values, care, competence, rather than reacting emotionally to him. And the feeling was described as immediate liberation. The patient didn't change, but her entire experience did.
That's powerful. The situation didn't change, but her internal response did, and that changed everything for her.
It shows that even in tough situations, that internal choice, that will, is where the real power resides. It forges character.
Okay, so if proactivity is about taking control of our response, how do we make sure that control leads to effective results over the long haul? This brings us to the PPC balance, doesn't it?
Yes, the PPC balance. This is Covey's definition of true effectiveness. It's finding the balance between P, which is production.
The results you want, the golden eggs.
Exactly. And PC, which is production capability. That's the asset, the resource that produces the results.
The goose that lays the golden eggs.
That's the metaphor. In life, PC is your health, your key relationships, your financial stability, your skills, your equipment, whatever enables you to produce.
And it's easy to get that balance wrong, especially when there's pressure for short-term results.
Oh, absolutely. Focusing only on P, only on the golden eggs. That's the path to burnout. In business, maybe you run machines into the ground without maintenance because stopping hurts immediate output.
Or personally, working insane hours, skipping sleep, neglecting family.
Right. You're churning out results today, but you're damaging the very capability, your health, your relationships that allows you to produce tomorrow. You're killing the goose. Eventually, the eggs stop altogether.
And the flip side, too much focus on PC, on the goose.
That's what some call the eternal student syndrome. Constantly learning, preparing, maintaining the asset, but never actually producing anything. Always getting ready to get ready.
Reading another book, taking another course, but never applying it.
Exactly. They're polishing the goose, but there are no golden eggs. True effectiveness requires managing that tension, that balance between the two.
This balance concept, it feels like it scales up, doesn't it? From personal effectiveness to how organizations are led.
It absolutely does. Which leads us nicely into the idea of level 5 leadership, from Jim Collins's good to great research.
Right, level 5. This is considered the sort of peak of effective leadership in that model.
It is. And it's defined by this fascinating, seemingly contradictory mix. Deep personal humility combined with intense professional will.
Humility and will.
Yeah.
How does that connect back to proactivity and that PPC balance we were just talking about?
Well, the proactivity, the ability to choose response based on values manifests in the level 5 leaders' focus. They are ambitious, fiercely so, but primarily for the company, for the institution's long-term health and success, that's the PC, not for personal glory or gain, which can be a short-term P focus.
So they have this compelling modesty. They're described as plow horses, not show horses.
Exactly. Their professional will is relentless. They'll make tough calls, face brutal facts, do whatever it takes for the company's good. But the humility keeps the ego in check. Collins found that 2/3 of the leaders in the comparison companies, the ones that didn't become great, had these gargantuan personal egos.
And that ego often derailed things. So how does the humility show up in practice? Collins had that window and mirror idea, right?
It's the key mechanism, yes. When things go well, when the company achieves success, P, the level 5 leader, looks out the window. They credit other people, external factors, maybe even luck.
Okay. Deflects praise.
But when things go badly, when results are poor, they look in the mirror. They take full responsibility. They don't blame the market, the competition, or their team. It's ultimate accountability.
That's proactivity writ large, isn't it? choosing responsibility over blaming conditions, subordinating ego to the long-term health PC of the organization.
Precisely. It's that PPC balance embodied in leadership.
Okay, so we've established this foundation. Focused thought, proactive choices, balancing results with capability, and this blend of humility and will in leadership. But even with that foundation, there are internal battles we all fight. Emotional hurdles.
Huge ones. And modern research, particularly work like Brené Brown's, although not explicitly in our core list today, really highlights the role of emotions like shame. It's identified as perhaps the biggest internal block.
Shame. Feels like such a heavy word.
It is, and the sources we're drawing on suggest it's a deeply primitive, universal human emotion. The only people who don't experience shame are those incapable of empathy or connection. So if you connect with others, you're wired for shame.
And how is it defined? What is shame, fundamentally?
It's defined as the fear of disconnection, that intensely painful feeling or belief that something about you, something you did, failed to do, or makes you fundamentally unworthy of love, belonging, connection.
I am bad, not I did something bad.
Exactly. That's the crucial difference between shame and guilt. Guilt is often functional. I did something bad can lead to making amends, changing behavior. Shame says, I am bad, and that's paralyzing. It shuts down our willingness to be vulnerable or take risks.
And when we feel that fear of disconnection, that sense of unworthiness, we tend to put up walls, right? Emotional armor.
We do. And sometimes we mistake that armor for vulnerability. There's this idea of using faux vulnerability, maybe oversharing too quickly, trying to hotwire a connection by dumping a lot of intense personal information.
Trying to force intimacy.
Yeah. But that's often the opposite of genuine vulnerability, which involved uncertainty and emotional exposure within appropriate boundaries. The oversharing can feel manipulative or needy, and it often backfires, leading to the very disconnection the person feared.
Okay, so shame is this deep fear of being unworthy. What about other fears? Like the fear that stops us from acting, the fear behind procrastination.
Procrastination. The sources are quite clear. Don't call it laziness. That's dismissive and unhelpful. Call it what it is. Fear.
Fear of what, though?
It could be fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough, sometimes even fear of success, because success brings new pressures and expectations. It's this fear that freezes us.
And the antidote isn't beating ourselves up.
No, quite the opposite. It's suggested the cure for that fear, especially creative fear, is actually love and compassion for yourself, for your inner artist or creator. Acknowledge the fear, understand it's a defense mechanism, and choose kindness.
We also carry baggage from the past, right? Guilt over old mistakes.
Definitely. Guilt can be a heavy weight holding us back. We need to find ways to process those past emotions, perhaps reinterpret them, learn from them, but not let them define our present or future. Cut off those painful roots.
This internal self-worth piece is so critical, especially when facing judgment from others. Les Brown tells that story about his mentor, Mr. Leroy Washington.
Yes, a pivotal moment for him. Washington looked him in the eye and said something incredibly powerful. Someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality.
Wow, just hearing that feels liberating.
Imagine internalizing it. It's like being handed a shield. It acknowledges that people will have opinions they will judge, but you have the proactive choice whether or not to accept their judgment as your truth. It builds that radical self-worth needed to pursue goals despite criticism.
And that relates to why we sometimes judge others so harshly, doesn't it? It's often a deflection.
Very much so. The thinking is, we're hard on others often because we're hard on ourselves. Criticizing someone else can be a subconscious strategy to divert attention from our own perceived flaws or insecurities. Point the finger outwards to avoid looking in the mirror.
Okay, so we navigate shame, we manage fear, we build internal self-worth. If we can do that, what's the fundamental human need we're then better equipped to meet in our interactions with others?
This takes us into the realm of human relations, drawing on insights from people like Dale Carnegie, who synthesized Freud, Dewey, William James. They all converged on one core idea.
Which is?
The single deepest, most persistent, and seldom fully satisfied human craving is the desire to feel appreciated, to feel important.
More than other basic needs.
Well, think about it. Needs like food, sleep, shelter, even sexual gratification, they usually get met, at least periodically in most societies. But that deep hunger for genuine appreciation, for significance.
So understanding that everyone you interact with carries this fundamental need to feel important, that's key to influence.
It's arguably the key. Recognizing and sincerely addressing that craving in others is the bedrock of building rapport, trust, and effective communication. It taps into the deepest spring of human nature.
All right, so assuming we've worked on the internal foundation, managing shame, being proactive, understanding this need for appreciation, now we can look at the external game, the mechanics of actual influence and communication. This is where classical rhetoric comes in.
Yes, for over 2,000 years, people have been analyzing and debating the art of persuasion or rhetoric. Figures like Aristotle, Quintilian, they laid the groundwork. The basic goal, the telos, was simply to speak well.
But it was controversial right from the start, wasn't it? Because it's a powerful tool that can be misused.
Hugely controversial. Critics immediately pointed out that eloquence could be used to free the guilty or condemn the innocent. It's a tool potentially detached from truth or justice. Sparta famously banished rhetoric, and Athens tried to limit its emotional power in courts.
And Plato, through Socrates and the Gorgias dialogue, offered a really sharp critique.
He did. Socrates drew a crucial distinction. He argued that oratory typically produces conviction based on belief, which might be true or it might be false. It doesn't usually produce conviction based on knowledge, which must be true.
So the orators, especially in front of a crowd, might be operating in the realm of convincing people without necessarily knowing the full truth themselves.
That was Socrates' concern. Using technique to sway opinion rather than lead to genuine understanding or truth.
So what should the goal be, according to this more ethical view?
For Socrates, the truly good orator aims higher. Their goal should be to bring justice and moderation to the souls of the citizens, to help remove injustice and excess. If rhetoric only aims to please the audience, to confirm their existing biases or desires,
It's just pandering, like a pastry chef giving us sugar instead of a doctor giving us medicine.
that's the analogy used, yes. One offers immediate gratification, the other aims for long-term health, even if the medicine is bitter.
Okay, so there's the ethical dimension. But whether the goal is noble or not, speakers still need tools to connect with how their audience thinks. This is where modern techniques come in, like the idea of meta-programs.
Right, popularized by people like Tony Robbins. Meta programs are basically the internal filters or patterns people use to process information and decide what motivates them. They're like our mental software.
And one key meta-program is about motivation direction.
Exactly. Do you primarily move toward pleasure and desired outcomes, or do you primarily move away from pain and problems? Most people have a dominant tendency.
And knowing that changes how you'd frame a message.
Completely. If you're talking to a move toward person about, say, an investment, you'd focus on the gains. This will help you achieve financial freedom, enjoy more travel.
Lots of positive, aspirational language.
Yes. But for a move away from person, you'd frame the same investment differently. You'd focus on avoiding negatives. This will help you avoid outliving your savings, prevent financial anxiety in retirement.
Same product, totally different angle based on their internal wiring.
Makes the message feel much more resonant, almost irresistible, because it speaks their language. It aligns with how they naturally sort information.
And this understanding allows for modeling, right? Learning from others' success.
Yes, the idea that you can accelerate your own success by identifying the successful strategies and patterns, the meta programs, the beliefs, the physiology of people who are already getting the results you want. You adopt their blueprint, bypassing years of painful trial and error.
And in direct interaction, one-on-one, the key technique for connection is rapport.
Building rapport. It's about creating a subconscious sense of connection and trust. A primary way to do this is by subtly, respectfully mirroring the other person's physiology.
Their posture, gestures, tone of voice, even breathing.
Yeah. When you pace someone like that, matching their state, it sends a subconscious signal. I am like you. I understand you. This can help bypass their critical filters and makes them more receptive.
Creates an unconscious bond, allowing you to then lead the interaction more effectively.
That's the theory. But, and this is a huge but, we have to loop back to integrity here.
Ah, yes. All these techniques,
Yeah.
they can feel manipulative if they're not genuine.
Exactly. Covey hammers this point home. The real key to influence isn't technique. It's your character, your example. People sense technique without authenticity and they immediately feel duplicity. Mistrust follows instantly.
So your character is always radiating, people pick up on who you really are.
Constantly. If there's a mismatch between your public persona and your private reality, your PPC balance, how you handle your own stuff, people sense it. That's why Covey talks about inside-out congruence.
Your daily habits reflecting your deepest values.
Yes. Living a life that's consistent. If you're trying to use influence techniques but your own life is out of whack or people perceive you as fundamentally untrustworthy, no amount of mirroring or clever framing will build lasting influence. Character is the absolute bedrock.
Okay, so character and integrity are paramount. But even with integrity, taking action requires courage. Courage to see opportunity and courage to face adversity.
Absolutely, an opportunity.
Right.
Sometimes we look too far away for it. Russell Conwell's famous lecture, Acres of Diamonds, speaks directly to this.
That's the story of Ali Hafed, the Persian farmer.
Right. He heard about diamonds being found elsewhere, sold his perfectly good farm, and spent his life wandering the world searching for diamond mines. He eventually died poor and miserable.
A lot of punchline.
The man who bought Ali Hafed's farm later found one of the richest diamond mines in history, right there on the property Ali Hafed had abandoned. In his own backyard, essentially.
So the moral is, look for opportunities close to home, in the needs right around you.
Often, yes. Opportunity frequently lies in solving a real human need that's right under your nose, within the sound of your voice, as Conwell put it.
He had a real-life example of this too, didn't he? The snap button.
A fantastic example. He tells of giving the lecture in New England. A woman in the audience went home, and while struggling with her old, fiddly collar buttons, a common frustration, she had an idea.
The lecture sparked something.
It did. She thought, there has to be a better way, and she invented the simple snap fastener. Push together, pull apart, solved a widespread, everyday problem.
And became incredibly wealthy as a result.
Immensely wealthy. Her husband, who initially mocked her efforts, ended up traveling on her private steamship, all because she recognized and solved a need right in front of her instead of dreaming of distant fortunes.
Conwell also had a perspective on the wealth itself, didn't he? He wasn't against being rich.
No, not at all. He strongly argued that people have a right to be rich, provided they earn it honestly and use it for good. He clarified that famous biblical phrase, the love of money is the root of all evil.
How did he interpret that?
He said the emphasis is on the love of money-making, an idol of it, hoarding it. The problem isn't wealth itself, but the miser who squirrels it away uselessly in the cellar instead of putting it to work in the world, creating value, solving problems, generating jobs, honest wealth creation that serves needs. That's a good thing, even a responsibility.
Okay, so we find opportunity, maybe close to home. But pursuing it, or just navigating life, inevitably involves setbacks. This is where the Stoic mindset comes in handy. Endurance, will.
Exactly. The Stoics, like Seneca, focused intensely on the will. They saw it as the discipline of the heart and soul, the one thing that is truly, completely under our control.
We can't always control what happens to us.
No, external events, fortune, other people, those are largely outside our control. But our response, our judgment, our will, how we choose to face those events, that's entirely internal.
And this internal control gives us strength.
It gives us the strength to endure what we must, to find meaning even in suffering, to contextualize setbacks. It's how we flip the unflippable, change our perspective on something we cannot change externally.
So adversity isn't just something negative to be endured, it actually serves a purpose.
The Stoics saw it as essential. Adversity is the forge. Difficult experiences are the crucibles that shape our character, building the internal strength, the resilience, the perspective needed for future challenges. Yeah. You don't develop resilience on easy street.
Makes sense. You need the resistance to build the muscle.
Precisely. And Seneca warned against getting complacent when things are going well.
Do not trust fortune's calm.
Yeah. The sea can turn rough in an instant. He advised using periods of calm to mentally prepare for potential difficulties, not morbidly dwelling on disaster, but contemplating possibilities so you're not completely shocked or overwhelmed when things inevitably go wrong. Anticipation builds fortitude.
So we have the internal work, the understanding of others, the awareness of opportunity, the strength to endure. But it all means nothing without the final piece, right?
Action. You have to actually do something. Knowledge isn't enough. Will isn't enough if it doesn't translate into deeds. You have to move from being just a thinker to being a doer.
Because potential unfulfilled is just wasted.
And Liz Brown's point here is poignant. If your talents are wasted, the person who suffers most is you. You feel that gap, that emptiness. You are ultimately responsible for pursuing your own potential, your own greatness.
And sometimes that action, that character, shows up in ways the person doesn't even recognize as significant. Like Conwell stopping that runaway horse.
All right, he saved lives, a genuinely heroic act, But he apparently forgot about it later. Why? Because it likely wasn't done for recognition or reward. It was just an instinctive action flowing from his character.
That congruence between who you are and what you do.
That's the ultimate goal, perhaps. Not necessarily seeking fame or influence, but building a character where positive action, service, proactivity are the natural defaults. The external impact becomes a byproduct of that internal integrity.
So wrapping this all up, we've covered a lot of ground today. It seems that real lasting influence, whether you're leading a nation or just leading your own life effectively, requires this really interesting mix.
It's quite a blend, isn't it? You need that deep self-knowledge managing the internal landscape of shame and fear. You need disciplined action, that proactivity. You need integrity, the PPC balance. And it's all underpinned by that clear vision, that focused what we started with.
And that paradoxical level 5 combination, intense professional will, but coupled with profound personal humility.
Yeah, that ability to look out the window and credit others for success, but look in the mirror and take responsibility for failure, that seems to be a hallmark of sustainable greatness.
Which leads us to a final thought for everyone listening. If that ability, crediting others, owning failure, is so critical for influence, maybe ask yourself this.
What's the smallest, perhaps most uncomfortable, personal failing or shortcoming? Maybe a dip in your own production capability that you're willing to look squarely in the mirror and own completely today, without blaming anyone or anything else. Perhaps taking that small step of accountability is the first move towards building the kind of character that truly influences the world tomorrow.